Hello friends and welcome to round number 3 of Nostalgia Talk Christmas Bonus 2025, where we look back on obscure Christmas productions of the past. This time around, a deep cut, Call Me Claus. This movie aired on TNT in 2001 and stars Whoopi Goldberg and Nigel Hawthorne in his final film appearance. I remember watching this movie only once years ago and it's bugged me for a long time. What's that Christmas movie with Whoopi Goldberg in it? Even my friends don't remember this one. As I was preparing for these retrospectives, I thought I'd try to find it, and it worked. Now, just a little disclaimer. Most of the Christmas productions I've been looking back on have either been animated or involve the Muppets. This one is a live-action film, and it actually does deal with some pretty heavy topics, so if you don't want to watch, that's okay. Now, let's begin. Our story begins in 1965 Los Angeles, panning around the city. It almost looks like it's snowing until we see a gentleman wearing shorts and flip-flops spraying Christmas trees white to create the illusion of snow. But everyone else looks all ready for winter. Meanwhile, a young girl named Lucy Cullins, played as a child by R&B star Tina Shea, I hope I said that correctly, has finished decorating the house when her mother calls her to take her and her brother to see Santa Claus at the Five and Dime. It's funny, her mother tells her they're seeing someone you really want to see, and Lucy guesses either her father or James Brown. Upon meeting Santa, Lucy lists a few toys that she wants and adds some special gifts for her mom and brother. But then she saves the best for last, her father to come home from the Vietnam War. Santa's elf asks Lucy, "How would you like a nice dolly?" But Lucy declines. Santa explains to Lucy that even if her dad can't be home for Christmas, all she has to do is keep him in her heart to keep him around, saying, "As long as you have someone that you love on the inside, you'll get to know how to live on the outside." Lucy understands, but would rather actually be with her dad, with Santa's elf insisting that there isn't anything Santa can't do, as Santa gives him a little glare. Lucy smiles and asks Santa if she can try on his hat after her friend Double Dog dared her to. The elf doesn't allow it at first, but Santa puts the hat on for her when it suddenly starts to glow before Lucy takes off, as the elf writes something down in his book. But the family returns home to learn that Lucy's father was killed in Vietnam. The passing of her father continued to stay with Lucy even going into her adult life, played now by Whoopi Goldberg, as she becomes a very bitter producer for the Shop-A-Lot shopping channel who takes her anger out on others, including a driver who parks in her spot, and she doesn't even bother to say thank you after she demands her morning latte from one of her assistants. With Christmas being a very busy shopping season, it seems that Lucy wants nothing to do with it. Although she does somewhat become happier to see the network also acknowledging Hanukkah and Kwanzaa. Even auditioning actors to play Santa and the elves, including one Elvis for the network, brings Lucy down, and none of them are the right fit. With their company expanding, Cameron, an executive at the network, promises to relocate Lucy to her choice of destination if she can find the perfect actor to play Santa to boost sales. Meanwhile, an older gentleman named Nick, who looks very much like the Santa Claus who Lucy came across years ago, is coming to the end of his 200-year contract in the role of Santa Claus, much to his annoyance, revealing him to be the real Santa, as one of his elves, the same one who was with him when he met Lucy, claims Nick to be a slacker. But Nick doesn't seem to want to give up the role and has only until midnight on Christmas Eve to train his successor or risk the possibility of the North Pole melting, which, scientifically, I don't think is even possible. Santa laments that there isn't anyone who could fit the job, but the elf, named Ralph, reminds him of Lucy, the only name on the list that isn't scratched out. Nick heads down to the studio to find Lucy, but is mistaken to be an auditioning Santa actor, while Lucy still doesn't find herself satisfied and has a full-on breakdown. Eventually, Nick catches up to Lucy and the director, Taylor. Nick is delighted to see Lucy again, but Lucy, unaware that Nick is the real Santa, has no recollection of him and sends him to audition, to his confusion as Taylor explains what's happening. But Nick's audition doesn't satisfy Lucy either, although he impresses Cameron, who gets Lucy to hire Nick. Cameron takes Lucy out for a sushi dinner where he presents to her some kind of secret, I'm assuming, toy to show on their network, hoping that it will bring in more money from parents to buy for their kids, but Lucy calls it the crappiest crap you have ever come up with. Back at the studio, Taylor picks up on Nick's Santa-like attitude, bringing up the elves regularly, and Taylor praises Nick for staying in character as Lucy arrives, learning from Taylor that her brother Dwayne and his daughter Aisha are waiting in his office, much to Lucy's annoyance. It seems as if Lucy hasn't seen them in a long time, jokingly not recognizing Aisha, although she seems happier to see her than she has been the entire movie. Right away, she starts screwing around with Dwayne as the pair invite Lucy to come see Aisha singing at the church on Christmas Eve. Lucy seems to be annoyed just to be asked, stating that she could possibly be away at the time with her potential relocation, and asks Dwayne to help her find a Christmas present for their mother, much to Dwayne's chagrin as he and Aisha leave. But Aisha is confident in Lucy showing up just as she meets Nick, who knows her name right away in typical Santa Claus fashion, delighting Aisha. Before Nick can ask Lucy to take his place, she sends Nick to hair and makeup. Cameron introduces the entire production staff to Nick at their office Christmas party as he takes pictures with the staff's children, including a child with Down syndrome, Jeff, who wants to give his sister, an employee at the network, a present. Nick knows that Jeff wants a very special present this Christmas and whispers it into Jeff's ear, delighting him. This is really sweet. I like seeing people happy. After the party, Nick tries to ask Lucy to take over for him, but Lucy just figures he's still in character before he can get to the point. But then Nick says, "Your daddy would be so sad to see you like this," to Lucy's shock as Nick tries to explain that he was the Santa Claus she met the night that her father passed away, but she angrily shuts him down as Ralph reminds him that there isn't much time. Does the actor who played Ralph look familiar? His name was Taylor Negrin, and he's one of those actors that you probably have seen on a lot of different movies and TV shows. I remember him as a salesman in Stuart Little, and he played the role as an easily irritated department store clerk in an episode of That's So Raven that I looked back on in my retrospective of that show. He seems to play salesmen a lot. He also had a main role on the short-lived sitcom So Little Time as Manuelo, nanny or Manny to the Olsen twins. Taylor unfortunately passed away in 2015, and I remember Whoopi Goldberg writing something very nice about him on Twitter. Anyway, carrying on, at the studio the next day, Lucy comes into the control room, again demanding a vanilla latte, with her assistant coming in late with one. When explaining to Lucy why she's late, Lucy snaps at her without even a thank you as Nick goes live on the air. Even Lucy's mother, who is watching on TV with Aisha, recognizes Nick, but just brushes it off. As Nick goes through some of the merchandise the network is selling, he starts to go off script, again annoying Lucy as she has Taylor have Nick read the teleprompter. Nick's charm on screen brings in many callers, little does Lucy know, but when one of the products Nick is selling is a figure of Santa designed like a slot machine, Nick refuses on camera to encourage gambling, much to Cameron's chagrin, with Lucy basically telling him, "I told you so," revealing that to be the secret toy that Cameron showed Lucy at dinner. That's not really even a toy. After Lucy has the network go to commercial, although their whole network really is one big commercial, Lucy rips at Nick for ad-libbing and fires him. But then Cameron informs Lucy and Taylor about all the calls they have been getting, many of whom have been complimenting Nick as Santa, as Lucy begrudgingly goes to look for him. It's funny, she comes across a Goodwill Santa and asks, "You haven't seen an old guy looking like Santa go past you, have you?" And the Santa's like, "What am I, chopped liver?" Lucy has no luck finding Nick, but Taylor finds his audition sheet. However, considering that he wrote his address as the North Pole, Lucy doesn't think they'll ever find him, sending Taylor to go find him, to his displeasure when Lucy blames him for having her fire Nick, who finds himself at a bar, nearly getting into a physical altercation with one of the Santa auditionees before Ralph splits them up to warn Santa that the North Pole is starting to fall apart, as shown on his snow globe. Makes me think of the Christmas special Santa Claus is Coming to Town, where Chris uses a snow globe, made of snow, as a way to watch over all the kids. Nick then starts to lose his own Christmas spirit, as nobody seems to care about it anymore, even Lucy. Ralph tries to give Nick a Christmas booster shot by taking him to Aisha's Christmas concert rehearsal at the church. This delights Nick enough to regain his Christmas spirit. Meanwhile, at Lucy's apartment, while she's on the phone with Taylor, Cameron visits and threatens to fire Taylor if he doesn't find Nick, and his whole family is fired too. Lucy points out that Taylor's family doesn't work for Cameron, and Cameron says, "Well, I'll hire them, and then I'll fire them." Jeez, somebody's on a power trip here. Cameron takes the phone and promises to give Taylor an office bigger than Lucy's if he can successfully find Nick, as Nick shows up at Lucy's apartment and Cameron says to Taylor, "Never mind." Cameron rehires Nick to the network and sets him up to stay at Lucy's apartment. Seeing no other option, Lucy gives in. After Cameron takes off, Nick once again tries to talk to Lucy about her taking over for him, but she cuts him off after he says, "I have been watching you since you were a little girl." Yeah, I don't think I would start with that, but anyway. To try and prove to Lucy that Nick is really Santa Claus, he magically turns off all of the lights in her apartment and puts on his glowing hat. A finally delighted Lucy points out that the network can make a ton of money selling glowing Santa hats, and Nick interrupts by having Lucy close her eyes, transporting her to the North Pole with him to meet the elves and his Norwegian wife Helga, Mrs. Claus. Now, this scene I sort of remember. Nick and Ralph take Lucy on a tour of Nick's workshop, which seems to finally put a smile on Lucy's face as Nick shows her the famous sleigh. It's there that Nick finally asks Lucy to replace him, transporting her to when he met Lucy when she was a little girl to remind her of her Christmas spirit from when Nick let Lucy wear his hat. Seeing as this only reminds Lucy of when her father died, Lucy angrily declines the job and demands Nick return her home. At the studio the next day, Taylor and Lucy find Lucy's mother in her office. She tries to talk to Lucy about her feelings of Christmas and its connection to her father's death. Lucy does acknowledge it, but doesn't follow up, heading to the studio where Nick goes live on the air, taking a call from an adopted girl from Korea named Meredith, who asks if their Santa is also Korean. Nick starts to give an answer, but Taylor directs him to the teleprompter. However, the staff seems charmed by Nick's answer as Nick talks directly to Lucy, watching from the control room. I actually remember in 2nd grade we did some kind of assignment on the Santa Clauses of the world, so that little girl's question was actually really interesting. Lucy has the tape played back, but finds Nick actually speaking to Meredith. The next few days, Lucy and Nick don't interact, and Lucy seems to be more depressed than usual, although less angry enough to thank her assistant for her latte, which she denies. Meanwhile, the North Pole continues melting with rainstorms hitting Los Angeles. On Christmas Eve, Nick hosts his final broadcast on Shop-A-Lot and also gives his final speech as Santa Claus and starts to get choked up. After rapping, Cameron announces a very successful Christmas season, beating all other shopping channels, and Lucy apologizes to Nick for giving him a hard time before he suddenly disappears when Cameron starts celebrating the network's success. At Lucy's apartment, Nick, now in the traditional Santa Claus outfit, is preparing to leave, but his hat starts to lose its glow, leaving it and a note for Lucy on a nearby table. However, Lucy's car backfires and Cameron offers her a ride home from work, giving her tickets to Bora Bora set to leave the following day, Christmas Day, to her delight as he announces that he plans on going with her to expand their company for money, which she at first believes to be Cameron confessing his love for her. But Lucy declines, realizing that Cameron only cares about power as she walks the rest of the way home, where she finds that Nick has left and discovers the note he left her, encouraging to try on the hat. After initially brushing it off, she finally tries the hat on, seeing her younger self in the mirror with Nick all those years ago, putting an even bigger smile on her face as she dances around, while Ralph and the rest of the elves prepare Santa's sleigh. Lucy tries to find Santa at the top of the world, like he wrote in his letter, learning that to be the name of a bar. She finds a cab driven by Ralph, who takes her to the bar where she finds Nick and excitedly accepts the offer to take over, as the storm, known by Nick as Ralph as the or else factor, starts to reverse as Lucy is transformed by Nick into Santa Claus, with Nick in his regular outfit, accompanying Lucy to help her deliver the presents. So does that make Santa Saint Lucille now? Nick and Ralph coax a nervous Lucy to make her way down the chimney to make her first delivery as Santa Claus, where she meets a boy who has stayed up and points out that Lucy doesn't look like Santa. Lucy describes herself as a Santa in training and gives the boy a very large bicycle, with Lucy questioning how it got there as the boy, James, is delighted. Just when James's parents wake up after hearing Lucy crash down the chimney, Lucy asks James for suggestions on how to get out of the house, not being able to go back up the chimney, and James suggests the front door. I'm assuming Lucy somehow found a way out as she, Nick, and Ralph, whose name Lucy keeps mispronouncing, probably on purpose, continue their journey, flying over downtown Los Angeles. One of the other only things I remember from this movie when I was a kid is the sleigh flying over the Hollywood sign. It's just a few seconds of film, but that's always been in my memory for some reason. Nick asks Lucy if there's anywhere she would like to stop before they carry on, and Nick takes Lucy to the church to watch Aisha sing, with Nick even going in with her. After Aisha's performance, Lucy reunites with her family as she uses her Christmas magic to make it snow, asking her mother, "Do you have your heart medication on you?" as everyone goes outside to enjoy it. Lucy promises to visit her family the next day as Aisha surmises that perhaps Lucy is Santa Claus before Lucy heads off, but Nick decides to stay behind. However, Lucy talks Nick into joining her to help her look for her Santa successor as he, Lucy, and Ralph take off in the sleigh. This is similar to the Santa Claus with finding someone to take over for Santa, Jack Frost with losing a parent so close to Christmas, and a Christmas episode of Punky Brewster, which, if you've ever watched that show, you get the idea. Henry visits Punky's school as Santa Claus, little does Punky know it's him, when she asks for Santa to bring her mother back. And I've actually known people who have lost family members close to Christmas, and for them, It really is just a reminder because the holiday season is family time. With one less family member, it can feel really empty, so I sort of feel for Lucy. Hey, if Lucy is now the new Santa, does that mean if she gets a husband, he's Mr. Claus? I'm of course thinking about the Santa Claus 2, where Scott Calvin has to find a Mrs. Claus. And by the way, I've got a question for the listeners. In my retrospectives this year, we've had Art Carney, Carl Reiner, and Nigel Hawthorne playing Santa. And I want to know, who do you think is the best actor to play Santa in film and television? Anyway, that's all I've got to say about Call Me Claus. It was nice to watch it again. It had a real 2000s nostalgia vibe to it, which I loved. And I hope you enjoyed listening to me talk about it. I've got one last Nostalgia Talk Christmas bonus for the year coming out, and I'll see you with that really soon.